Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar entitled Introducing Cortex XSOAR. I'm Shri Sheth, and I'll be your moderator today. We're thrilled to have you here with us. We have a lot of exciting updates, demos, and conversations to share with you all, so get ready. Just a quick review of our housekeeping items before we begin. You can type your questions in the bottom portion of your webinar console, and we will try to answer as many as time permits. It should say a Q&A. This session will be recorded, and we will send you an email of the recording and all relevant links following this webinar. And now, I have the pleasure of introducing our speakers. We have an exciting lineup for you all today. First, I would like to welcome Slavik Markovich. Slavik is SVP of Product at Palo Alto Networks. Prior to that, he was co-founder and CEO at Demisto, a source security startup recently acquired by Palo Alto Networks. Before Demisto, Slavik was VP and CTO of database technologies at McAfee Intel. He joined McAfee via the acquisition of Centrigo, a database security startup, which he co-founded and served as CTO. Next, we have Michael Poddo. Michael is the Director of Cyber Threat Analysis and Response at Emerson and a Cortex XSOAR customer. He's an innovative leader with more than 15 years of experience in operational cybersecurity leadership. Prior to joining Emerson, Michael was a founding member of the Lockheed Martin Computer Incident Response Team, where he built and led the team responsible for executing intelligence-driven network defense to preempt and respond to advanced persistent cyber threats. And last, but definitely not least, please welcome Neelima Rustagi. She is our Senior Director of Product Management at Palo Alto Networks. Prior to that, she was Director of Product Management at Demisto, which was acquired by Palo Alto Networks last year. She has over 10 years of experience in product management and engineering capabilities, which only add to her incredible expertise. And now, with everything out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Slavik.
So hi, everyone, and thank you for joining during these crazy times. By the way, it looks slightly different from my photo on the previous slides after 3 weeks of not shaving. I think I look a bit like Michael. Today, we're going to introduce Cortex XSOAR. Now, if you're familiar at all with Demisto, that you can think of Cortex XSOAR as a new version of Demisto with extended functionality, which we're going to explore in this presentation. Just in case SOAR is new to you, let me quickly introduce what SOAR is all about. SOAR stands for Security, Orchestration, Automation, and Response. When we say orchestration, we mean centrally controlling your security product stack. SOAR does it with a workflow engine or playbooks that control the logic of stringing products together using familiar concepts like conditions, loops, and parallel execution. Playbooks are built from tasks that coordinate across people, technology, and process. The second component of SOAR is automation, which is somewhat logical subset of orchestration. Within SOAR, automation involves finding repeatable tasks and executing them at machine speed. SOAR products have automation scripts and extensible product integrations to accomplish that. The final component is response, which involves maintaining incident oversight as it goes through the incident lifecycle. Within SOAR products, this includes case management, collaboration during investigation, what we call virtual war room, and analysis and reporting after incident closure. One of the most important integration categories in SOAR is threat intelligence. During response and general security ops, understanding the threat adds tons of value to the process. So we took a long look at how threat intelligence is being managed, and we saw very similar problems to what we've seen in the SecOps space. There's lots of manual process in the ingestion of feeds and manual curation of data. Workflows are broken across tools, people, and process, and the general lack of confidence in the data leads to slow response, as you cannot automatically push data for prospective matching and enforcement in security policy. Today, talking with customers, there's really a duplication of efforts between the SOAR and threat intelligence teams. Both sides deal with data ingestion and integrate with similar tools, and as I mentioned before, the data sharing is critical for the success of both teams. we want to update threat intelligence with data coming from incidents, but also enrich incidents with data coming from threat feeds. Moreover, using the same playbook concept increases the confidence in the data coming from the feeds. You no longer need to rely on static, opaque rules for initial curation. You can apply a process that replicates the manual work a threat analyst would do, thus achieving much higher confidence in the data, which in turn allows you to take action immediately at machine speed. For example, getting a list of new C2 servers of an actor, you can immediately validate this list via playbook to enrich the list from other sources, verify maliciousness, and immediately push the list to your firewall. Or another example, getting a list of compromised credentials, you can immediately verify in an automated playbook that credentials are relevant, and then you can actually enforce a two-factor auth on the users that are affected. Neelima will show more about the threat intelligence management in a demo later in the presentation. So again, the whole idea of marrying threat intelligence and incident response allows both tools to actually work much better together. The tools benefit from the same process of creating a playbook, and the playbook, whether you ingest alerts and resolve them, or you ingest feeds and then use the playbook to curate, manage the score, and then push the data out to enforcement tools, actually helps doing the same, using the same capability to respond at machine speed to allow you to resolve your incident. Before I hand it off to Michael, I just wanted to recap Cortex XSOAR value. First, playbooks actually help you codify and enforce a process that's common across your security teams. These playbooks can be fully automated, fully manual, or any combination of the two, with each scenario having its own advantages for increased efficiency. The other aspect is lower response time with automation. XSOAR can automate thousands of actions across your security products, handing back time to you to investigate and make decisions. These automations can be for alert ingestion, data gathering, response actions, and updating info back into the point product. The last is coordination across security products. And it's very important to understand. You can have a process-centric view of how to respond to a particular incident that's not tied to any one security product. All security products have their purpose, but playbooks provide you an abstracted view of the process and make it easier to replace one product with another whenever you need to. And not that we could in the beginning of the year. So we saw over 19 million actions automated with our customers. We now have around 400 integrations, many of them added in the last 12 months. Out of the box, again, this is a bit older, but out of the box, we have around 350, I think, playbooks as it stands right now. And there's around 100 use cases that are currently being used in production by customers to resolve incidents. And now, I guess to Michael. Michael, to you.
Thank you, Slavik. Hope everyone's doing well. Again, we mentioned earlier, it's a chaotic time for all of us. I hope your finds you safe and healthy. My name is Michael Poddo, and I'm really honored that the folks at Palo Alto would ask for me to come on and share a little bit about our journey with SOAR. So a little bit about me. You heard the intro earlier. This is really just my attempt to work in a Baby Yoda into a presentation. But I think if you look at those pictures on the right-hand side, that's probably what a lot of us feel like being cooped up for the last few weeks. But my background is I spent 13 years with Lockheed Martin, founding member of the Lockheed Martin CERT with some really amazing folks. And then I took this new position at Emerson in 2013. And that's really where my true journey with SOAR started. It's really important that we talk about the business drivers behind SOAR. And really, for me, SOAR is much more than any product. It's an approach, right? It's our effort to become more efficient, to get rid of how do we get rid of the false positives? How do we properly and consistently prioritize alerts and events as they come in? How do we ensure that we are consistently applying mitigations across a large team or even a small team? And you also have to remember that this looks different depending on the size of your organization. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. So some of the things that I may talk about today may not even apply to you, but hopefully the premise behind them does apply. We want to be as consistent as possible with how we handle malware in particular, but even alerts and documentation. So we want to be as consistent, again, and complete as possible. And that's where, when we started down this journey of looking for a SOAR platform 3 years ago, we were unable to find any product that would meet these requirements for us. So we started building our own. Unfortunately, that's where we came into play with the Misto at the time, and now Palo Alto Cortex XSOAR. So it helps to understand a little context of how my organization is configured when we start to talk about how we approach SOAR in specific use cases. We have 3 different organizations within my team, and one is the external threat-focused operations team. Some would call it a SOC. We don't call it a SOC ourselves, but it's our 24/7 by 365 global incident response external threat-focused organization. We have our behavioral analytics team, which is the insider threat focus, and then we have our intelligence and counter threat team, which is sort of the glue that holds all this together. The key thing for us and how we approach network defense is that when the bell rings and we have a major enterprise incident, all these 3 teams collapse into one. But each one of these has unique but also overlapping SOAR requirements. So how do I keep my organization consistent across all 3 functional areas? Well, let's talk about a specific use case. And for us, pre-SOAR, this probably looks like many of your browsers today, right? You have too many tabs. You have tabs open for all your different capabilities, whether it's mitigation, whether it's research, whether it's documentation. You receive an alert, it comes to your analyst, they go maybe to you might have a Linux box that serves as kind of your analysis subsystem. They do a lot of work within there, then they have to copy and paste into a ticketing system, which they may or may not even do correctly. And then they have all these tabs up, which are also copying and pasting data. And what you end up getting is a really confusing narrative or inconsistent narrative of what is actually going on within your team. Add into that volume where we had 33,000 alerts a month, almost impossible to provide the appropriate context and the relationships between those things. This is not the way we need to live, and we've all been feeling this way for a long time. The other side of this is how do we select the things we work on? I think I've spoken to dozens and dozens of companies across the world about this problem. And it comes down to a frustration of how do I pick and choose what my analysts are working on? How do they pick and choose? And the reality in this diagram here is those alerts are kind of the core. Alerts come out, and then the area with the magnifying glass towards the middle of the slide there, analysts pick and choose which ones they want based on sometimes arbitrary priority, sometimes vendor assigned priority. I'm unable to, and we were unable to pre-SOAR apply the appropriate context that says, hey, this is a server, this is a specific server that I care more about than other servers. How do I make sure this gets prioritized appropriately? And then we respond, do some pivot, and the goal is to get to strategic mitigation and not play whack-a-mole all day long. So this is our pre-SOAR environment. And then once we started work going down the route of SOAR, we start to see some of those key business drivers being met, right? This being satisfied, this requirements being satisfied by our SOAR platform. So now we still have these core alerts coming from various tools, whether we have a SIM or not, being generated. Sometimes they're alerts from our end users. Now we pull those into an ETL platform that we created so that these things are integrated. Again, that was a requirement for us for a SOAR platform, was that it is not, for us, the end-all be-all. It's a piece of our SOAR approach. And our ETL platform will process that, enrich that, reduces false positives, we gain efficiencies, and then we'll push into our SOAR platform, in this case Cortex XSOAR, the prioritized ticketed item for the analyst to work on. So they're no longer picking and choosing. We have logic behind, and what is being developed and pushed to the end user is a fully enriched and sometimes triaged ticket for the team to work on. And then, again, we've moved some of these barriers out of the way. We don't have to look up host names. We don't have to look up all this core data. And the pivoting process, it just becomes even more and more efficient. And because it's self-documenting, we can get our analysts we can enable our analysts to do what we pay them for, to analyze, instead of pulling down drop-down menus and assigning values that just pull them away from the core work that we want them working on, that we pay them to work on, and what makes their job cool. We are constantly making our analysts' jobs stink. We're putting things in the way that we could just automate out of the way and get them to work on the things that we really want them to be working on. And then, again, more effectiveness, more consistency, and the output, again, is the same goal: strategic mitigation and high-quality metrics, because we have a consistent application of categorization in custom fields. Some other things we realized post-SOAR: we saw a lot of benefit on our intel and counter threat side. The quality of data that was going into our incident management system was better. Therefore, the quality of data of our own intel, right? Your best source of intel is your own work that your team's doing. It's great to have external feeds to augment that further. But really, if you're not paying attention to what you're doing internally and what the trends are that you're seeing, you're going to be in some trouble going forward. So from the IR operations perspective, again, that automation, triage, and acquisition, and feeding that into our platform, huge benefit. And of course, on the insider side, I can't go into huge detail here, but our proactive insider threat detection that is built on our SOAR platform. So I thought if I wanted you to walk away with 4 things from this quick webinar today, I'd say SOAR is not one of the lame buzzwords that are out there today. There are a million of them, and there continue to be year after year after year. But I can tell you from my experience, SOAR as a mindset, right, integration as an approach, is not a buzzword. We're all looking for ways to become more efficient. We're not trying to automate the analyst. We should never automate the analyst. We need to automate the things that get in the way of the analyst. It's not just a bolt-on. You don't buy a SOAR, right? You can't look at SOAR. It's your approach. And don't try to be like everyone else. Look for the efficiencies that you need in your organization and implement them. Be patient. Work together, collaborate with partners, with other organizations. See what others are doing is great, but you may not fit one-to-one what your organization is doing, and that's okay. I've talked to a lot of folks that were extremely frustrated because they couldn't do X or Y. I've been in the same position. Every organization is different. But the bottom line is that if you're not doing any sort of automation or orchestration, you need to start thinking about it, because it's going to increase your efficiency. It's going to reduce your risk and free up your analysts to work on the hard problems that you actually want them to be working on. With that, I think I'll turn it back over to Slavik.
Wow, thanks, Michael. That was really, really good and enlightening. And during, as I said, these interesting times, I was wondering, how do you guys manage with kind of, sheltering home, work from home, a remote SOC type of thing?
So the great part for us has been we've always been a globally distributed team. So there wasn't much of a change. And I can tell you the biggest challenge that any team, I think, any global team has dealt with over the last 5 or 10 years has been communication. How do you keep the communication going? Not just the daily Zoom meetings or WebExes or whatever you have going on, but the consistent handover from organization, from shift to shift, or from team to team. I think that's where being an existing SOAR client, that we have already practiced that documentation, that handover. So when the time came for us, our team to, in each region, work virtually, we had no hiccups whatsoever transitioning into the fully remote SOC or network defense organization.
Wow, you guys were really lucky to already, work remotely, so not a lot of change of pace. Very cool. So with that, I think let's pass it over to Neelima to show some of the product capabilities.
Thank you, Slavik. Thank you, Michael. That was very enlightening. So I'll quickly go to the demos now, but wanted to kind of talk a little bit about our breadth of integrations, right? As a SOAR platform, we already had a really, really rich, good mix of integrations with the detection, enrichment, and response products that could allow our users to feed critical alerts into Cortex XSOAR. Now, with the threat intel management capabilities, we have added numerous open source feed sources like Fido, Tracker, Halo Taxi, and also private ones like Autofocus, which is, of course, our own feed, as well as Recorded Future and other private feeds as well. There is support for structured generic feed sources parsers as well. So, for example, you can, if there is a feed that posts the feed in CSV format, and we do not have an out-of-box integration for that, you could simply go and configure that as a CSV parser, and then it will automatically basically start curating or parsing out your indicators from that format and posting it in the threat intel management repo for us. The integrations are bidirectional, so they result in two-way flow of data, regardless of the type of integration it is. It totally depends on the product and the APIs, so that, the product databases, whether it's alert database, whether it's your Intel database, they stay up to date. So the first use case we will be talking about is whitelisting the SaaS application IPs and other observables in your firewall. The scenario is that the firewall admins or NOC is responsible for ensuring employees can always access the SaaS applications such as Office 365. They have to manage a stream of inbound change requests from their security teams and other business units. But regardless of these daily changes as well, Office 365 must always be whitelisted in the org, even though the network infrastructure for Office 365 may be updated. So what we will show is that in this use case, we are going to take the feed ingest and then let these systems, so Demisto or Cortex XSOAR, basically can normalize, ingest, and map the feeds without really needing a playbook in this scenario, and then can pull the curated indicators from a repo using the EDL service integration, which is available out of box in the platform for Cortex XSOAR, starting with our latest release. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen, and there might be a delay for 4 seconds. So we'll start as soon as you can see my screen. Okay, so you can see the screen. So now let's jump into the demo. Okay, in there. So we're going to go into the settings and look up the Office 365 feed. We are going to open the setup for the instance. And as you can see, we support the regions and services by this feed by default. So when you do the drop down, you can see those automatically populate. The expiration method is when the indicator is removed from the feed, and the feed fetch interval is 5 minutes. So once it's set up, we can see that the indicators are already getting pulled in. We go into the indicators view, and what we are going to do now is filter on all the active Office 365 feed-based sources. So what we are doing here is we are trying to make a filter that we are going to give as a feed to our firewalls. So Cortex XSOAR provides very, very extensive, rich query language. And with this release, we have added a lot more querying capabilities around indicators. So here we have a feed. We have a filter that will create a feed for our firewalls. We are going to go back to the settings and open up the EDL service and provide this indicator query to be hosted for, to be provided for the EDL service. So we're going to add the query. You can configure the EDL size, refresh rate, and we're going to change the port. Test it. And the easiest way to see this is to open the URL where the service is hosting the curated list and see what is going into the EDL. So this shows a very simple but very powerful way of taking a feed which the system kind of dedupes as well as normalizes, and then just setting up the egress points for that feed. Now we'll go to a second use case, which is slightly complex use case, right? So this use case actually shows the power of having the SOAR and the tip pieces together in the same platform. So this use case talks about quickly ingesting finished intelligence documents and then finding relationships to existing security alerts or intelligence in your platform. The scenario is that the threat intel team has received a new finished intelligence product from the government containing written analysis of a malware family and list of technical indicators of compromise. And we need to quickly find out more about this intelligence and then see if there has been any retrospective alerting for this intelligence in our systems. So what we are going to do, as you can see in this view, is we are going to take a finished intelligence report and demo two flows. One that pivots and checks for known strategic intelligence that we have in the system. And then another flow is to find exposure to past security incidents. So I'm going to share again my screen and wait for the screen share to appear, and then we'll start the demo. So, all right. So we can see this is the Cortex XSOAR terminal I have. What I have open is the incident or the ticket where I parsed the security intelligence report, right? So if you see, if you go in the playbook, there is a PDF that was given to this ticket, and the playbook ran and parsed out all the extracted indicators from the PDF. We also check if the PDF is OCR enabled in the playbook, and then we can actually extract text from the images. In this case, I have tagged that as a note to be tracked at the top level in this view. So as we go back into the incident info, we can see that a number of indicators that were extracted from the report have a known reputation, right? So we can see that they are being enriched. There is some with good, but there are several hashes which no intel sources that we are integrated with know about this use case. So we'll come to that one. But let's start with the one interesting hash that is listed here. Now you can see that we also have related incidents view. So in this scenario, our tickets or our alerts are also coming into the platform, and as they come into the platform, we correlated it with indicators. So in this case, we can see for this hash, we have two tickets that we can see, right? Now, what we are doing is we are using the same layout that we generally use for the tickets to kind of customize and also track threat actors using the same layout, right? So we can see that from this report, there is a hash that matches the threat actor SOFACI. So when I click on this view, I come into a customized view for tracking my threat actors. So here I can see that, the threat actor description we have tracked. We have also have a visual of the campaigns it's been associated with, as well as the MITRE attack patterns, and then also the known other type of hashes that are related to some of these MITRE patterns. We can track the threat actor attributes using the tags as well as the stick goals. So this view was created from a sticks format. And then in the associations, what we do is we are tracking campaigns as another object type here. So we can start seeing the relationships. Plus, we also start seeing the associated indicators from a campaign perspective, right? So you jump from a parsed intel to associated threat actor here. Let's see another interesting hash that appears here, right? So we came in from this hash. Now we will click on this, and you can see that here we have connected the threat actor to an attack pattern. If I open this is another view of the same threat actor kind of layout, but here we are tracking the attack pattern description, the attack pattern attributes, and its association. So this is the first flow where we took a intelligence report, kind of associated it with the known intelligence that we are tracking in the system, as well as with the attack patterns. Now, going back to the second use case. So let's take an indicator which came in and has another set of two related instances, and we don't know, none of the threat intel sources know about this. So when I click on this, what I can see now, and this is the power of the platform, that we automatically associate, we will find this hash if it appeared in any of your previous tickets or your forward-looking tickets automatically. So in this scenario, we can see that this has actually appeared in incident that was raised by XDR some time back. And this is the view. When I click into this, I can go and very clearly see the XDR ticket view, right? So we can customize our layouts and the tickets based on the type. It's very, very customizable. So here we can see the case information, the related alert severity that XDR has rolled up. And when I go into the investigation tab, I can see the rolled up incident, associated alerts, and all the network artifacts. For that, we can also see the hash that we just talked about, as well as now it gets very, very interesting. So I know that this hash is now here. I want to explore some other artifacts that have been looked at before in this. So when I click on one of these hashes, what I can see is that I've already, because I was kind of testing this, I can see that, there is a common theft for this hash that this might be connected to the SOAR actor. When I click into the full view of the indicator, we see some very, very rich information there, right? We can see the typical file details information, hashes, a widget for the VT score, related incidents, all the intel sources that fed into it, the tags, the timeline on when this indicator has been touched, and some comments. When I go into the detailed file report, we can get information from, detailed information from your threat intel sources using the APIs and show virus total, like this is the private API information for this hash, as well as, of course, the platform provides an autofocus API with it, with 5,000 queries per day. So you can actually get all the reputation and the information we know about these hashes automatically over here. So here, for example, we do have a tagging capability that we provide with this, and I can, in the third tab, get the information for the tags as well. This whole view is very, very customizable. So you can add more intel sources with rich data cards as you are evolving the platform. So all in all, finally, what I will do is I'm going to leave a tag here, was seen in XDR and in Intel related on 10. Right, so we can leave comments as well as add tags to the indicator and start adding more information here. So we also provide very, very rich dashboarding capabilities. So this is an out-of-box dashboard that comes in for this view. You can see the feed activity coming in, the indicators by reputation. And you can also design widgets where you can start seeing the hits for your feeds with the incidents if you are also using the platform to manage your incident lifecycle. With that, I will hand it over to Shri to take us to the next slide. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Neelima. That was an awesome presentation and, of course, a very in-depth demo, which I know that we all love to see. So thank you, Neelima, Michael, Slavik. This is some exciting stuff, and it's always helpful to, of course, see the demo, but most importantly, hear from those who are actually using the products firsthand. So thank you again, Michael. Before we jump into some questions, I wanted to share a couple of resources I think you'll find helpful. If you haven't heard of our community edition, it's an excellent way to get your hands on the Cortex XSOAR product. It's 30 free days with a full version of Cortex XSOAR, and actually one of the coolest parts is you also get access to our DFIR community, which has over 13,000 members. It's a great way to talk security with your peers and learn a new product. I highly recommend it. Next, we have an extremely powerful offer available, and you can find this in the top right of your webinar console. The goal of this is to help make this transition to a remote SOC as smooth as possible. We understand these are unique times. We're offering Cortex XSOAR with free accelerated onboarding until May 1st. This is an opportunity for our professional services and customer success teams to walk you through the deployment of XSOAR, make it as easy as possible for you to just take full advantage of the product. It's completely free of charge for anyone purchasing in this time frame. And we also know deploying solutions on-prem right now is a little challenging. So to help with this, we're giving anyone who purchases Cortex XSOAR the ability to get 1 year of free hosting. We want to ensure that you can get your security team ramped up, working effectively in the tool. Once again, take a look at that link to take advantage of those two offers and let us know if you have any questions. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our questions and move straight over into Q&A. We had a few that popped up multiple times, so I'll kind of let Slavik kick this one off. Slavik, can you explain real quick just the relationship between Demisto and Cortex XSOAR? Where does XSOAR fall in the Cortex family? Why did you decide to name it that? If you could shed some light, that would be helpful.
Of course. Thank you, Shri. So we had multiple questions asking, hey, is Demisto going away? Are we deprecating it? Are we killing the product? So all of the guys who answered, rest assured, Demisto is not going anywhere. In fact, Demisto and XSOAR are the same product and the same platform. So XSOAR, Cortex XSOAR, is Demisto version 5.5, all right? The reason why we changed the name to XSOAR is to more correctly represent the fact that we're extending the platform beyond SOAR into threat intelligence and maybe in the future into other areas. And so if you're today on Demisto, whatever version you are, like 5.0 or whatnot, when you upgrade to the new version of 5.5, you get Cortex XSOAR. And we are, again, part of the Cortex family of products, which includes also XDR. And there's a tight integration, as we've seen with Neelima's demo, there's a tight integration between those products. Hopefully that answers this question. So Demisto is not going away anywhere.
Perfect. Thank you, Slavik. The next question, Michael, this one's for you. I know you answered it on the side, but I think it would be beneficial for the whole audience to hear too. This one is, what is your ETL platform and how are you integrating this with XSOAR?
Oh, great question. So I should have done a better job of presenting. ETL, first of all, is extract, transform, load. It's a method of essentially taking data from one place and cleaning it up or doing something to it and then moving it somewhere else. And in our specific implementation, we built in-house something we call Tobias, which is our ETL platform. And it sits in front of Cortex XSOAR and does the upfront operations around prioritization enrichment prior to going into sorry, I'm trying not to say Demisto, Cortex XSOAR. It's Tobias is something we wrote in-house ourselves. It is something that's on our short-term list to try to open source, along with some of the other things we've open sourced in the past. And if you haven't seen our GitHub page at Emerson Electric, there's something called File Scanning Framework out there, as well as a couple tools that we've written that we think would probably be, others have found really helpful. So look for Tobias up there at some point.
Perfect. Thank you. This next question is related to the demo. So Neelima, you could take this on. Slavik, I know that you have an answer to this as well. So in the threat intelligence use case that was just shown, would that be considered a replacement for MindMeld?
Yes, so that's a great question. The short answer is yes, and the long answer there is MindMeld. We are going to have MindMeld is not going away anytime, like short time in the short future. So it's going to be supported till August of next year, as it the hosted MindMeld piece for especially. Please talk to your Palo Alto sales reps. They all know what the option is, and we have a very well-defined process of porting the MindMeld functionality that you may have in production today in Cortex XSOAR. So we'll be happy to kind of work on that process with you once you've had that chat with the sales staff. Thanks, Shri.
Yeah, of course. I have another question here. I see there is now a common server PowerShell automation in addition to the original Python or JavaScript. How can common server PowerShell be used in Cortex XSOAR, and how can PowerShell be utilized in general in 5.5?
Oh, an interesting question. I'll take that. Interesting question. So as you know, you can already develop automations and integrations in JavaScript and Python. Most of our code is developed in Python, but we know of a lot of use cases where PowerShell is actually more suited for what you're trying to achieve. And the way it works is that we provide basically a Docker image with PowerShell capabilities. And you kind of develop exactly as you would develop a Python code or automation or integration, you would develop against that Docker image and the PowerShell capabilities. So it's in fact a full capability and language option, the same as the other two. Should work exactly pretty much the same.
Perfect. Thank you, Slavik. This one is related to Cortex XSOAR once more. When Cortex XSOAR is hosted as SaaS service by Palo Alto, how is it possible to connect to internal systems, or do these need to be made available over the internet, for example, via reverse proxy?
I can take that one. So when we host Cortex XSOAR, we basically have a concept of engines. So what we do is we will basically deploy an engine on your enterprise, which is nothing but a service that will run on an internal system. And we will connect to your internally deployed products with our hosted SaaS service using that engine. For obviously whatever is hosted in the cloud, that is not required, but there is a very well-defined process to kind of get access to your internal systems using that engine.
Perfect. Thank you, Neelima. Next question. I think any of you three could answer this one. Are there any limitations of running XSOAR on-premise versus cloud-hosted?
Yeah, I'll take it. It's in fact exactly the same product, cloud-hosted or on-prem, the same exact functionality. It's literally the same product. When you have it hosted, you will need, as the previous question that was asked, you will need a way to touch the product on-prem. So we have the engine to allow you to do that. But otherwise, it's exactly the same capability. There's no difference.
Perfect. Thank you. There are a handful of other questions that I can quickly address. So we will have a white paper highlighting the TIM piece. That'll come out in about a couple of weeks, so stay tuned there. In your thank you email, which you will receive with the recording and the slides, I will also have the link to the Cortex XSOAR offer. I see a couple of questions asking for that. And of course, you can find that link in your webinar console right now, too. We will also be sharing a few other resources in that email, so stay tuned. And then I'm looking at the other questions, and a lot of them are super specific to a specific customer. So we will go ahead and answer those personally following the webinar. So if your question has not been answered yet, don't worry. It will get answered after the webinar. You will receive an email from us. And with that, if there are no more questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Slavik, Michael, Neelima, was there anything else you wanted to add before we close?
No, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'd like to thank Michael again for his time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Michael, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Don't forget, we will be sending out the recording slides and all those resources later. And then don't forget to take advantage of the Cortex XSOAR offers. Please reach out with any questions, and we hope that everybody is staying safe and healthy. We look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri.
Excellent. We're back in the private lobby now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that was hard.
So yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, there were tons of specific questions, like clearly some customers literally being like, this is something I'm trying to do and I can't. And I was like, yeah, we can't answer those right now.
I was thinking the comment room looked like Twitter a little bit. Like, hey, I want this.
I know, it's very live feed, yeah.
But
exactly
actually, the questions weren't the hardest part for me. It was I forgot